Welcome to the Living Undeterred Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnston, and today I have a special friend. We're gonna have an awesome conversation today. I've been wanting to get Carson on my show for a while. I've been following him on social media. I'm in awe of what he's done at such a young age, far more than I ever did at that age. So we're gonna talk a lot about being a young entrepreneur, the challenges that go with running a company, the ups and downs. Talk about some mental health concerns that we have as a society. And then I do want to spend some time talking about something close to my heart, Carson. I know you know where I'm going with this, but welcome to the show. I want to tell you, you are the youngest CEO and founder we've ever had on the podcast.
I am thrilled to be on. Thanks for asking me to join, Jeff. Thanks. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, and I don't doubt we'll have a lot to talk about because we go back a long ways. For those that are new to this podcast, I lost my oldest son, Seth, at the age of 23 from a heroin overdose. Carson was Seth's best friend through high school. And if I get a little emotional, I apologize. It's kind of normal for me these stages. But so I wanted to get Carson in here for a lot of reasons, but one was kind of that common bond we had. And I remember coaching you and Seth in basketball and the battles we had. And at some point during the hour conversation, Carson, I'd like to kind of get your input on maybe from your lens, from your perspective. Mine's from the dad perspective, but where are you from? Where are you at right now? Where are you living today?
Well, for the last 4 years, I was in Chicago to, growing the business kind of through there. But when the pandemic hit, I moved back actually to Cedar Rapids.
How long have you been back then? A couple of years?
Literally since about a year.
Okay. And again, I mentioned you were an entrepreneur and a CEO and a founder. And at 27, I think, right? 28, yep, 27?
That's right.
Okay.
27.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about this journey that you're on, and I want to definitely talk about fan food. I've been admiring watching you build this brand. You guys are really good at marketing. You do a super job of putting really good content out there. And boy, when the pandemic hit, Carson, my heart went out for you. I'm thinking, man, what a tough time to be doing what this great idea you have with fan food, delivering, at sporting events, the experience where people can sit in their chairs and watch the game and food is literally brought to them. And all of a sudden now you don't have fans in the stadium. And that, I'm like, wow, that's a test of courage. It's your first go at this, and here you go. Welcome to the business world.
Exactly. It was like, as an entrepreneur, you're like, you feel like you solve one problem, two more arise. You know what I mean?
Right.
And when that came up, it was just like, okay, I guess we're going another round in the boxing match, because it's like, how many punches can one take? I mean, when the pandemic hit, it was. We were forced to get really creative. Aside from, we had to make a lot of tough decisions operationally, right? When your business does rely on large event gatherings and this kind of unforeseen event occurs, like, yes, we had to make a lot of tough decisions to our employee base. But, we pivoted into new markets and leveraged our technology to create a new business line that, I think in the long run has a lot of potential and one that allowed us to keep cash flow coming in. So, to survive it out and come out on the other end. And the platform that we were building, we were excited about it pre-pandemic, but in a post-pandemic world, we believe with mobile ordering that'll become the kind of standard to help, support social distancing initiatives as venues do start to reopen. So
I saw your last podcast and I thought, man, if there's anybody that embodies the living undeterred mindset, that's Carson Goodale. So I'm like, take me back to when the idea popped in your head. Take me back to, I want to be a fly on the wall when you guys are sitting around your dorm room or something. You're like, hey, we got to think of this. We got this idea pops in your head. Take me back to that moment.
Yeah, I was at the University of Iowa my sophomore year at a bar with some of my buddies. Super crowded.
Of course.
Of course, right?
Where else would you be?
Exactly. And I remember complaining to some of my buddies. I said, wouldn't it be great if I could order a drink off my phone and have a server bring it to me rather than us trying to navigate through the bar to try to get a drink?
What year was
At the
this?
time, 2014.
Okay.
Yep. And so that was kind of the aha moment. We pivoted into sports because I felt, as a sports fan, the biggest pain point was waiting 20 minutes in line for a hot dog and beer.
Right.
And that was the problem that we wanted to solve. And at the time, you know, with respect to on-demand ordering, you have in last mile, delivery with Grubhub, DoorDash, a lot of competition on the restaurant side, and where I felt that there was a greenfield of opportunity was in sports, small and
Hmm.
medium-sized business, and there was POS, point of sale competition, but no one was really focused on that mobile ordering component, and so that's where we focused our time and attention. And with my business partner and still co-founder today, we launched at his high school offering an express pickup lane.
Hmm.
And this was right after I graduated college. So it took 2 years to get a product up and running. But once we did, we launched there, got some good initial feedback from customers, enjoyed the experience, helped the concessionaire, the Booster Club, make a little bit more money for their fundraising initiative. And I didn't want to look back in 5 or 10 years and ask myself, what if? I knew someone was going
Right.
to do this. I knew someone was going, and so I wanted that someone to be me.
So did you then design an app essentially, and did you kind of borrow some of the ideas from the existing programs that were out there? It seems like, most businesses aren't really new ideas. They're just repolishing a mousetrap and doing it differently. I mean,
Hmm.
even my company. I mean, Premier Investments. We didn't invent investments.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
But did
exactly.
so you had some people out there. Who were the big players out there in that industry? And you said it was mostly restaurants at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Doing so Grubhub had
Yeah, Grubhub.
IPO'd in 2012, so 4 years prior. Their business model, though, is actually providing the labor to facilitate that last mile delivery. So
Hmm.
if you order Grubhub from your home, you know, Grubhub is, employing the people that are, picking up that order from a restaurant and doing the delivery. Whereas,
Right.
you know, our business model is a little bit different in that, we tried the whole providing staffing component inside stadiums, but it's very time intensive and doesn't scale as nicely when you're just trying to, get your platform into as many venues as possible. That's kind of our approach as to how we think about it.
So you come up with this idea. You go to your high school. You present it, and word gets out that this is pretty cool. It's a little bit ahead of its time. And then you probably had the presentation you had to make in front of your first, actual sale, a big company or whatever. How'd that go?
I mean, that getting the first one on was the challenge, but I think part of the entrepreneurial journey is also comes down to raising funds, right? The cash to
Yep.
actually do it. And so
Yep.
um, after that, and I was, if I'm going to go full time with it, our first fundraiser kind of launch party after that was with our family and friends. And so we rented out yeah, Kinnick, a suite box, put a presentation together for all the family and friends, and then put a business plan together and everything like that, and presented
Hmm.
with the intent to raise that initial capital. And then with that, we used, I mean, a lot of that funded a lot of the product development, right? So getting that product to where we felt we could actually start to sell it into other stadiums outside of just high schools, like minor league teams and youth sports complexes, things like that. And from there, I was living in dad's basement for 7 months when I went full time with it. So there's only so much time you can be in a basement. So I
Right.
transitioned to Chicago, and that's where I think really the journey started to begin. We started to network with angel investors. We raised money from angel investors. We raised money through an equity crowdfunding platform. We raised, and then the next kind of phase is a larger kind of institutional round of capital. Start to hire a team outside of your good friends that are your co-founders. You start to bring in, build a team, start to surround yourself, start to build out your departments, and execute really against the go-to-market strategy. And so, and I would say we really started to kind of grow in that 2018, 2019. And then, the pandemic hit and we're just like, well,
Yeah.
gosh, you know,
What
if
was
it
your
was
major in what,
money,
what was your major in college?
finance.
That's what I had too. Yeah.
And interestingly, my first internship was at Premier Investments, and you were my
I
boss.
know. And matter of fact, Carson, I have to tell you, I thought that you had been there more recently. I went back and looked at, I was going through researching you. I had to vet you to make sure you're legitimate for the show. I'm kidding. But I went back and I found it. I found a LinkedIn conversation you and I had, and it was in 15. So this was a year before Seth actually died. And I thought you were at Premier after he had passed away, but I guess that was
Mm-mm.
prior. And so that really, for me, I went back to that moment when you were in the office, and I got to thinking, that was when I was kind of on top of the world. I mean, I was
Mhm.
50 or 49 years old. I mean, happily married, 3 kids, just everything going great. And, we had a TV show, radio, everything. And so you saw me kind of at the top of the mountain in my life. And then right after that, just the mountain crumbled and my whole life fell apart. And, since then, lost a child, lost a marriage, took a lot of time off from the career. And now I'm back, reinventing myself there. So where I was going with this, Carson, is you kind of saw me at a time in my life where I didn't appreciate things. I probably didn't even appreciate you being in the office that much because I was so focused on other things. And when you lose a son, lose a marriage, lose your confidence, you lose everything you have, and then you build it back up. Now you start to really appreciate relationships that you probably just took advantage of. And I look back in a lot of what I did during that time before he died, and I say this, and I don't mean this to sound the way it probably will be taken by some people, but I'm a better man now than I was before when all this happened. And what I learned
Mhm.
was I could be a better man or a bitter man. That's how
Mhm.
I started this Living Undeterred project and wrote the book and all this stuff. And I go back to you, and it got me thinking. The very first radio show we ever did, Carson. If this will make you feel good. So you had COVID as your first welcome to the business world, young entrepreneur, right? We're going to
Mhm.
give you COVID. I had the March 9th of '09 was the day I went to the first radio show, the Premier Investments of Iowa Financial Hour. That was the bottom of the freaking stock market. That was when
Mhm.
every company was crumbling and people are jumping out of buildings and tipping over cars. And here goes this, whatever it was at that age, late 30s, into the radio station all excited, thinking I'm going to get my kneecaps cut off. And I made a conscious decision, Carson, on the way to the show that I was going to talk about life insurance, not stocks, not the market. And the first show was Welcome to the Premier Investments of Iowa show. Today we're going to talk about life insurance. And you can see the lights start lighting up on the call thing, and everyone calling in wanted to talk about the stock market. But I figured, if I'm going to really take advantage of this opportunity that the stock market gave me, what better time to come into a radio show than the middle of chaos? And I have to tell you, Carson, in the long run, when you look back, I think COVID is the best thing that's probably could have ever happened to you to come into the business world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a silver lining. Professionally, it was difficult, but personally, there were some challenges too. I remember back when I was interning for you, I went on that the radio show with you, and I remember you were interviewing me, and one of the questions I remember you asked, you said, you studied finance, you're very interested in stocks and investing at a young age, and I'm talking about value investing. You're like, who was doing that? Right. And like,
Right.
why are you so interested? And I said, my aside from, you being a mentor, right, as my pretty much my first boss and the kind of
Hmm.
seeing the real world experience, said my uncle Greg.
Right.
And so, during the pandemic, it was tough. I also, one of the reasons why I moved back is because I lost my uncle last year. as well as my grandma. So
Yeah.
personally, it's just a ton of pain, and I appreciate the fact that you said, you chose when you responded, how you responded versus you could be bitter or get better. And I think
Right.
like similar approach to me is, I think I initially after, he passed, resorted to probably certain habits that were not
Yeah.
healthy, right?
Yep.
Such as
Yep. I did
alcohol
too.
and stuff.
Yep.
And, and kind of going down that path because it's like your business is crumbling despite everything that you're trying to do to get, to keep it afloat and, lead that company and be the leader that you need to be. But it's like personally, you're a mess because you
Right.
lost your mentor, your life coach, the person that you get to see every day, and it was just a challenge. And I think that after, and that was I think the first time too last year where I experienced, we talk a lot about burnout.
Yeah.
Um, my and I'm grateful, but for this, but my now, but I had to get some psychiatric help,
Yeah. I
and
heard
I was
that.
I was very depressed,
Right.
and about everything, and after I had to get checked in, so I was in a hospital for a few days, and I started to make the conscious decision of getting better and not
Right.
being bitter, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
love that how you say that, and I started you know practice became a morning person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I started to get healthier, live healthier. And I
And I
agree with you. I think I'm the best I've ever been too.
and I didn't. I'll be quite honest with you. I didn't know that about you at all until I heard the podcast last week, and I immediately, once you said that, you cracked open that door of vulnerability. I said I got to get you on my show. I just that immediately I could resonate with what you went through. I mean, I've been through even before Seth passing away. I had very difficult periods professionally. We had times where we were the highest risk with the local bank in regards to the money that was loaned to us, our ability, were late payments. I mean, we went through all this. I mean, I borrowed off every relative, on my hands and
Hmm.
knees. And so, begged for extensions on payments, called the IRS when I owed six figures in taxes one year, in my 30s. So when you said that, I thought, okay, part of part of growing up is admitting vulnerability. And
Hmm.
at your age, to do that when really no one really knew what was going on, I think resonates with millions of people, Carson. I think there's so many people going to watch this going, everyone looks at what I'm doing, but behind the scenes, I'm not happy. I mean, why do you think suicide rates are the highest they've ever been? Overdoses are the highest. Yeah. When Seth died, there was like 56,000 deaths in the United States. There was 80 last year. I mean, we are the most unhappiest, at peace, worst well-being country that America's ever been. Yet we know more about these things than we've ever known, and so there's a huge disconnect there. And I admire what you're doing, Carson. I think fan food is an awesome part of your story, but I think you have a bigger story to tell. I think when you get older and look back on your life, fan food will be one part of your success stories. Like Premiere is just one part of mine. It was 30 years of my life, but it's certainly not going to be my legacy.
Hmm.
Was
Yeah.
it difficult? Was it difficult to share these stories with this? Was it difficult to come out publicly and at least using the word depression and hospitalization, and those are hard things to say.
Yeah, it's it's very hard, and I think I still struggle to communicate it because I think I'm still fighting the good fight, right? I think
Hmm.
you waking up every day and knowing that there's certain things that are out of your control, and there's things
Right,
that are within your control, right? And
right,
it's like, and some days it's just get through the day, like you take it, sometime minute by minute, hour by hour,
right.
afternoon to afternoon. It remains a challenge, and I think that, and I think people are, and coming from a background in the military, right?
Oh,
Like
good
having some,
point.
I think there is
Yeah,
like a stigma of like not willing, just kind of taking your emotions and just shoving them down and not communicating, and like that that resulted in me getting hospitalized and not communicating when things were going right. So I think as I'm, trying to communicate, I think it should be overcoming your mental illnesses is something that I think should be celebrated, because it's probably one of the hardest things to overcome if you
I'm
actually.
happy you brought that up, Carson, because their military background. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, as a way, to help, pay for my college, I decided to enlist in the military, go through infantry school, in the National Guard. I enlisted in the Iowa Army National Guard, went to basic and AIT, and then when I went to college, I joined the ROTC program. And when I graduated, I commissioned as an officer in the United States Army Reserve as a finance officer. And so, during my studying finance at the University of Iowa, I also minored in a leadership studies, the ROTC kind of curriculum, to learn how to become, an officer and the various, leadership skills that come with it. And that, was instrumental in helping establish a business and adding structure, and a lot of the skills, soft skills that I learned, were definitely, instrumental in me, getting to where I am today, but, hopefully getting to where I want to be tomorrow.
It's interesting how you worded that a little bit ago about the fact that you learned toughness actually kind of was the seed of your inability to deal with life's pressures when they got thrown at you. And I tell you what, man, there's a lot of truth to that. There's an illusion out there presented by mainstream media that you need to get tough and get over it. And I call BS on that. I think what you need to do is you need to accept what happened to you and absorb it into your story going further. Not repressing it, not burying it literally, but to say, I was an alcoholic. I'm proud of the fact I don't drink anymore, and it's part of my story. I'm a grieving dad. I miss Seth immensely. I'm proud of Seth, but it's part of my story. I don't want to not talk about Seth. I had financial difficulties in my 30s. I don't want to hide that. It's part of my story. I considered suicide after Seth died. It's part of my story. But we don't want to do that, especially men. The highest, I came across this study, and it's amazing to me, but the highest year-over-year increase in suicide in the country is white middle-aged men. And if you go back to think about it, aren't they kind of promoted as the strong father figures in society? And that's a stigma that just needs to be challenged and replaced with actually, all stigmas are bad. But I go back to your military experience, Carson. I think it's awesome they train you personal fortitude and get over it and all that. But I think as you get older, you realize that that's not always a healthy way to deal with things.
Totally agree. And it's interesting too. Like, there's in the veteran community, there is 22, and suicide is a very high. Suicide rates are incredibly high and unfortunately high in the veteran community. And I think the statistic is something to the tune of 22 veterans will commit suicide a day. Wow. Is where we're at. And it's terribly sad. So it's
it's tough. And I think again, some of the things I was writing down here for me, what are your coping mechanisms? What are the things, you said a morning person. I have become a morning person. I thought of myself always as a morning person, but for so many years I was, hungover. And so I wasn't getting up really early. And now that I get up, now sleeping into me is like 7. That's like literally sleeping in, which, I enjoy the mornings, but that's one thing that I like that you said. What are some other coping mechanisms that you implement, day to day, week to week, that get you through things?
Yeah. Whenever I have a stressful event that happens or something that triggers where I start to get stressed, there's a couple things. I will either resort to a workout. So I have Peloton in the basement.
Yep.
I go on a run, go walk. I don't care. Like, go play basketball. You know, that's what Seth and I used
Oh, I know.
to play up until the early morning, late at
Yep.
night, playing in
Yep.
your driveway. Still do play weekly. You know, do some sort of activity, or I'll like meditate, and I'll take deep breath and deep
Awesome.
breathing exercises. And
Yeah.
there's a certain kind of process. I'm an app guy, obviously, so I have some apps to help guide me. I'm not like perfect, nor do I think I'm actually. I think I'm actually terrible at meditation still, but I'm like, I practice the habit of doing that, and it has been helpful. Whatever that stressful environment, whatever that was, I step away from it and kind of helps me take my mind off of that event. And like, so those are small things. I changed the way that I eat. I think
Yeah.
one of the
Yep.
unhealthier things that I used to do was I snacked like at night. I'm a sweet tooth. I love sweet tooths. I still do, but too much of it. And
Hmm.
so like now on Sundays, my girlfriend and we prepare meals,
Hmm.
for the week, healthier eating habits. And I definitely think that there's something to the fact that, drinking a gallon of water a day and eating healthier is like, does have some mental health benefits to it. And I, firmly believe that. So, um, it's like if you're not doing those things, then you're not giving yourself the ample opportunity to get out of the dark place that you were in. And I believe that. So, yeah.
I wish I had your wisdom back then, because everything you just said, other than basketball, I didn't have a very healthy lifestyle for a long time. Now, I was always a fairly good eater. I never had that problem. I never ate a lot of
Hmm.
beef. It was turkey. I didn't eat fast food. I don't like fried food. I don't eat cheese, and I've been that way my whole life. So that part, I didn't
Hmm.
have to like reinvent myself. But the to me, and you mentioned meditation, man. I have a chapter in my book. Have you read the book yet? By the way,
Yeah, of course, I've read it. Yes,
I
I've
thought you
read it.
did. I was going to send you a copy. I thought you did. Matter of fact,
Yeah,
you probably even sent me a note, and I just forgot about it. But
I read it.
um,
I said that. I think I read it in two days. I front to back,
yeah,
obviously.
and you
So.
saw the meditation, how much that meant to me, and I never meditated till after he died, and
Hmm.
meditation was big for me. Just being around positive people, not people that are, like motivational coaches and life coaches. I didn't really need that. I had enough kind of internal motivation, and you probably do too. But I just needed to be around people that weren't complaining about the election, or weren't complaining about
Hmm.
religion, or complaining about what they saw on Fox News, and just toxic thoughts in my mind. And meditation really got me to just realize how less of control we really have over our thoughts, and we need to just sit there and admire them when they show up, and then let them go away, and don't judge them. That was the main thing. I'd sit around and get sad about Seth, and I'd go, well, maybe if I would have had a better father son talk, he wouldn't have died, or maybe if I would have done this, and I got to thinking, you know what? That's just a thought that doesn't even
Hmm.
exist in anyone else's brain other than mine. And so I'm just going to let it go away. I'm not trying to make it go away, because every thought naturally just runs its lifespan. And I kind of learned
Hmm.
that that's how I deal with my grief now. Is they're just thoughts. They're just, even if someone were to fender me, that's an experience with a thought. But again, I can control, like you said, Carson. I can control the attitude I take. And that's
Hmm.
important. Hey, we're at the halfway mark. I want to talk a little bit about Seth. Um, Tell me something I didn't know about Seth. I'm a dad now, so I only see Seth as a dad. But what are some things about him that you can recall?
Man, that man was he was probably one of my like best friends, growing up.
Hmm.
And I think like when you ask yourself questions around grieving, like, could you have done when I was in college, right? And that's when we started to kind of go our
Yeah.
separate ways. And I asked a lot when he died. I was, looking at, comments from he had shared with me on Facebook, and all stuff in the past. And I asked myself very similar questions, like, as a friend, could I have done something? could I have, reached out sooner or hung out with him more often to kind of help steer him in the right direction? I asked myself a lot of those similar questions because it's sad, but I got to commend you on like kind of, facing and this is something that too, like we talk about stress and anxiety and depression stuff, like dealing with your problems head on and incorporating it into your story. And people listening to this, if I'm going through addiction problems, you might save one person, right? And like, I would define that, as a success. And so, but yeah, I mean, growing up, Seth was the clown. We joked all the time. We joked all the time. I could tell you that my first relationship, my first kiss, happened at your house.
All right, go ahead. I'm going to cover my ears. I don't want to hear this part. Is mom listening to this?
Exactly right.
Oh man, I'm laughing.
But no, I mean, University of Iowa basketball camps. I mean, we attended those. I remember. You guys were big University of Iowa basketball fans. My grandpa, flew the team back when Tom Davis, and stuff was coaching. So he kind of had, that hook up with the courtside tickets and stuff. So I remember countless games growing up and tailgates where we would go together. And it's like these memories that will always, be with me. And what I do remember of Seth is a lot of the positive, like just he always made me feel, good. I mean, all my memories with them, we just always had a great time together. And I remember a lot of, basketball and joking and throughout the day in school. And it's just, those are like, I remember the positive things, so it's just, it's heartbreaking to go down the addiction path, and see what, how it ended up. And I got to say, it's something that I was going down too after Greg died. I have ADHD. I know you do too.
I do too.
And I was on Adderall or, prescription. Took too much. And that's a very addictive drug. And taking anti-anxiety medicine and depression medicine and all of that. And that's what led, and I was kind of going down that path and to a point where it's like, this is not, and it's sad to say, but, a part of me to see how that happened, I didn't want to happen to me.
Yeah.
And I recognize that early enough. Granted, I still ended up, getting some psychiatric help but it's because that I didn't want that addiction to take over my life. And so I wanted to and I cut everything cold turkey. And it just sounds like, what similar to you did. You quit drinking and alcoholism and stuff like that. Cut it out of my life cold turkey and wanted to be better. Right. And so Seth gave me that, strength to be able to do that and to continue to talk about it even today. It takes a lot. And so I know Seth's looking up and has my back. And so I know he's looking at and supporting, and that gives me, peace. So,
well, he's awful proud of you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, people ask me what my why is, and I'm like, my why is pretty simple at this point. I mean, I just want to help kids make better choices. That's all I want to do. And, I just, the fact that he was just robbed of so much life, and he was robbed of his brothers and his daughter, and, these things that I just got to find a way to not get hung up on even using the word robbed, and more that we are presented as an opportunity to better ourselves, like you have done, and not to have fallbacks. I mean, shit, it's a fist fight too for me, and people see the image I'm promoting, and like I'm, I think I had someone one time tell me, well, I'm not you, Jeff, I'm not Teflon. And I'm like, dude, you didn't see me 2 nights ago on my frickin' floor, bawling my head off, at 2 a.m,
Hmm.
you know, and it's tough, but that's why I do this show. That's why I do this project I'm on. It's like, I'm not motivated by money, which is such a blessing to not have to worry about likes and followers and people buying. I've never looked how many books I've sold. I never will. I don't care.
Hmm.
Obviously, I can tell more people if people subscribe to my YouTube channel, hint hint, and like things and all that stuff, and I'll play the algorithm game, but that stuff doesn't interest me. Just hearing what you said about Seth, just because I know it's hard to explain. I don't want to get too hung up on this, but there is definitely people right now that are either going to go through this as a child, like they're 14 and 15, and or their parents, they're going to get that call like I got at 6:30 in the morning on October 4th, 2016, that he was dead in a hotel room. But Carson, the sad thing about Seth is when he got out of prison, he actually looked good and was doing really good. And we thought this was it. That was his rock bottom, was incarceration, and his complexion looked good. He had abs. He just looked the healthiest he's ever been. And then within 60 days, that addiction just pulled him right back in. And the rumor has it that he had met somebody that kind of was into this stuff. And I think recreationally, based on the needle marks they found, that, he wasn't a heroin addict. He was just an addict, and if I can get one kid that can hear this and says, gosh, I got drunk last night, or I did vaping, or I did marijuana, and I want to go out to a party next week. If they can just say, no, I'm going to step back and I'm going to revisit the direction I'm on, choose a different road, then, this is all worth it for me,
Totally agree.
But
Totally agree. And it's
I go ahead. Sorry.
same thing, like with how, my uncle passed away.
Carson, I'm going to stop you there. I don't think I ever met him. Do you mind spending a few minutes? Greg, right?
Yeah.
I saw the post you made, and I understood how impactful he was in your life. Do you mind spending a few minutes about him and how impactful he was to you?
Yeah, absolutely. He was my role model. Similar to you. Like you guys, they both had he was funny, well respected, very smart, successful, had built a very successful career in the financial industry. And he got sick. He got depressed, moved back home. And he had and when he passed away, we kind of got some hints that he was getting sick again, but I think we were too afraid to kind of address it head on and really talk about it. And unfortunately, that's kind of, even like with Seth, it's a dark path that you can come out of nowhere. And I think that's what I appreciate about everything that you're doing, is because the easy route is to kind of get, do unhealthy things. Right. And I think that the harder thing to do, and this was one of my biggest problems, is being present, like living your day to day. And the harder thing to do is to say no. The harder thing, you know what I mean? And I think like that's where, talking about this and living and sharing these stories is what makes it so important, because Greg was hard on me, right? He was the the guy that could get any girl in the bar, and he was the one that I smoked my first cigar with. And when we had that family and friends round, you see this up here right next to this cactus, it's a check. And during that family and friends round, he wrote me $1,000. And in the memo, he put bye, and he gave it to me. He goes, "I'm never seeing this money again, because your startup is probably going to fail." Right? And that pissed me off.
I love
so
that.
much.
That's awesome.
That pissed me off so much, and it motivated me. I wanted to prove him wrong. I look forward to the day where I can give him a 10x or 100x return on that investment.
Absolutely.
And the sad thing is, I'm never going to get that opportunity.
Yeah.
So how can and that was tough for me to to deal with, right? Like,
Yeah.
no matter how successful fan food will be, I won't get to ever prove him wrong, right? And
I
that's
know
something
I
I
know
just,
exactly what you're saying. Yep. Yeah. But you
um,
you will though, Carson. You will in a different way.
in a different way. And I think it
Yeah.
goes back to, and I think you said it too earlier. It's like, I'm not driven, obviously there's a piece of me, and I think a lot of people want to be financially free, but it's, success in my mind isn't a function of how much money you get. It's how many lives can you impact, right?
Hmm.
And if you increase that number, then that's where I feel like you're more successful in that regard. And it's so, and if telling these stories, and using them as a strength, then I think, could save a person, right? Who
Yeah.
might be going a darker path. Um, and if one person, we save one person, then I would say it's worth it. This was a successful podcast recording.
Right. There's so many people today. The social media benefits are huge. I mean, I wouldn't be doing any of this right now. And I'm meeting some just absolute heroic people every day, especially on LinkedIn. That's kind of where I'm not kidding you. It's 5 to 10 new contacts a day that I'm talking about are really good contacts. These are people that could potentially be lifelong friends of mine that are embracing the journey. I'm embracing their journey. And, but that's great. But here's one of the problems with social media is the idea of, say, like imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
How we sit there and watch everyone else posting their great successes and their launchings and their ribbon cuttings and their
Mm-hmm.
marriages, and as you sit back and maybe you're going through COVID or I'm going through divorce or bearing a child, and all I see is everyone's graduation pictures. I mean, you have to go into social media knowing that there's going to be things probably every day that somebody's going to be doing better than you. And one thing I learned, Carson, through meditation is this idea called meta meditation, METTA. It's meta mindfulness. And it's where you genuinely are happy for other people. And in my meditation practice, I practice meta meditation sometimes where you think of somebody you don't like. So think of an adversary in business that came in and undercut you, or somebody who denied a loan, or somebody who just didn't like you on social media or at a gathering, and you think about that person and you think kind thoughts to them. You close your eyes and you think, "I wish you happiness today." Whatever you did at that day that felt you needed to do to me, I forgive you for that. And there's something about going through your life being genuinely happy when other people do things better than you. And instead of sitting around in self-loathing, God, I thought I was doing good, but there's somebody doing better than living undeterred. I'm going to quit. Instead of me
Mm-hmm.
doing that, I can say, you know what? I want to call that guy up and introduce myself. And together we can do more than either one of us could do by ourselves.
I
That
love
type
that.
of mindset. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm a competitor just like you. I saw you play basketball. You were a frickin' competitor. You had no problem getting fouls in games, I'll tell you that.
He calls me out.
I
He
know he
calls me
said, how many fouls does Carson have? 2
out.
minutes into the game.
Four fouls, not even halftime yet. Oh boy.
But they were all effort fouls. They were never lazy fouls. It was, going over the back or something you were doing. But no, I go back to wishing other people happiness. And I think if we found a way as sentient beings to look at other people's success, and if you do have jealousy or envy, use it in a constructive way to make your life better, not to
Hmm.
wish bad things in other people. So now when I see a post on social media, I jump out. I'm one of the first ones to compliment maybe somebody that's copying or doing what I'm doing. Maybe someone that has a book that is the same story I have. I'll go jump on and support them because that's the only way you're going to get through life without being a miserable human being and living, in spite of everyone else's. There's always going to be someone better looking.
Hmm.
I know, Carson, it's tough for you to imagine that, but there's going to be someone better looking, more successful, faster car, better looking spouse. I mean, it goes on forever. And if you don't
Hmm.
really fall into that trap, your life becomes so much more at peace,
Yeah. I watched this video and they said something about like, you know, miserable people life feels like it's going to go on for a long time, and people who are joyous, it goes by in a
Yeah,
flash,
yeah,
right? So
right.
like it's I thought that was kind of interesting because I agree. I think it's easy to get angry, it's easy to get jealous and upset about certain things or have an opinion about this or that, but that's kind of like what you're preaching, right? This whole notion of living undeterred is like, you know, being grateful, right? And appreciative for everything that you can and around you, and having peace in that. And I think that's why I resonate with your mission and your purpose so much. So,
Yeah, and the two, when I wrote the book, I decided that, the cover looks dramatic with Seth's arms up, and that's an actual rainbow that we took. That was on our front porch at Swisher, and
mm,
Seth's back was facing the mailbox, if you remember.
really?
And
Yeah.
that rainbow was actually kind of colored. It actually was there. It just wasn't that bright in the real picture. And there's
Hmm.
this dorky looking face, and you know, I guess when people look at that, they think, "Oh wow, this is going to be a sad sob story," and I don't want to read it. And I've got friends of mine that have actually got the book, and they've told me they haven't read it yet.
Hmm.
And it is an inspirational book. I wrote it when my thought was I wanted people to put the book down and then walk down the hallway, open up the door of their kids' bedrooms, and walk in there and kiss them on the cheek and whisper "I
Hmm.
love you," and then go back out. Or when your parents call and it's late and they say, "Hey, give me a call," instead of saying "I'll call you in the morning," or "Don't answer it," because you don't, just fricking call them, talk to them. Maybe the last time you ever see them again. And
Hmm.
embracing impermanence is a concept that I think more people should look at employing in their life, and that's the idea that impermanence is nothing lasts forever. Our conversation is going to end here in 15, 20 minutes. I will get a call shortly that somebody that I know passed away. It's like a game of Frogger every day. You're just dodging, logs and cars coming down the highway. And if you understand that everything has a lifespan, everything will die.
Hmm.
Memories, relationships, businesses. I mean, nothing's permanent. And if you think about that, then you run through life really respecting conversations, and you really have gratitude
Hmm.
towards even people that you're not overly happy with, that you are upset with.
Hmm.
Um, there's going to be a day when that person won't be here, and having somebody like Greg or Seth removed from your life really brings home the importance of gratitude. You
Totally.
know,
And I appreciate the section in your book where you talk about the growth, right?
mm-hmm,
Mindset when someone or an individual goes through these experiences.
mm-hmm,
And that was kind of when I read that piece in your book, that's when I really started to become a lot more intentional about what am I doing now? Address my
right,
emotions, my feelings head on, and where do I want to be? What do I need to do to get to that point? And that's when I really started to establish a more intentional thought process about, putting myself actually first
mm-hmm,
for the first time. You know what I
mm-hmm,
mean? Putting
mm-hmm,
my feelings and emotions first, putting my health first, prioritizing things that are important to my life, and not, flooding my entire life with, you know, things that like business, right?
mm-hmm.
That, and that's what's tough when you try to start your own business as an entrepreneur, is that whole notion of work life balance and being able to separate professional and personal.
Right.
Very very tough to do when that's your baby. But going through, you know you can, that whole kind of grieving process, it's, I really was intentional about adopting that a growth mindset. I read every single day. I'm
I do
intentional
too.
about I'm intentional about that. I want to learn. I'm a lifelong learner, and I will continue to do that. But I have to be intentional about it, because if I don't, I'm ADD. I'll forget. Something will come up, and I. But there's certain things that I'm very intentional about every day, because I want to be better every single day.
Mm-hmm. So Carson, I want to ask you about the word intentional, because I absolutely love that word. because you can have all these habits and you can have all these things, or you can even have, an idea, but there isn't intention behind it. So when you said that word, what did you mean by that?
It feels like everything I do, I wake up every morning and I set my intentions. That's one of the first things I do. I look at my calendar, look at my day, look at what I want to accomplish and how I want to prioritize my time. And when I said I'm intentional, I know that I want to be better every day. I want to continue to learn every better, and I don't know everything. I don't act like I know everything. And so how do I accomplish that? How do I accomplish those goals? And I think that it starts with setting those intentions, writing things down, right?
Yeah.
I do. I try to accomplish, because it's like, there's just so many, and I'm a big, like, I write all my to-dos and stuff down, and
I do too.
And if I don't, it'll, can slip through the cracks, but it helps me get structured with my day, and helps, yeah, just helps me. Yeah.
One thing that I learned as an owner of a company, I started at 23, so I can definitely relate to what you're going through, was that I didn't take enough time to enjoy the successes. I didn't take enough time to see the fruits of my labor, to take a random staff person out to lunch for no reason, not to give them a raise, not to tell them to work harder, but ask them maybe how their parents are doing, or, whatever is going on in their life. And I think I lost a lot of my life's enjoyment by simply just not understanding that I had all these goals, but I never had any times where I just got off track and just enjoyed it. Sitting back gazing back at the company, watching everyone work and beaming with pride. I was always out trying to find more ways to make money. I was always out trying to find more clients and do another marketing idea. And I think being able, as a business owner, even in the early stages, even the fundraising stages, you get $1,000 check from your uncle. That's something to go out and celebrate. I mean, that's big, because pretty soon that's $100,000 check. And I think that's a lesson I would give to any young person starting it doesn't have to be a business. It could be starting a job anywhere that you're involved in creating. Enjoy, take time. You're going to have plenty of times to not enjoy.
Yes.
The failures will be more than the successes. So don't worry about that. You're going to have plenty of time to grieve, but make sure you find time to enjoy the times when you do have a good moment,
Yeah. I appreciate the reminder too, because even still, like, I'm always, I feel like that I'm always trying to figure out, okay, like, how do we continue to grow, first time business owner. So obviously, like, I'm just trying to go from, you want to make as much revenue as possible,
right?
Close a deal,
Right.
and it's okay. What's next? What's next?
Right.
Next, and
Right.
it's going back to being intentional about enjoying your wins is something that I definitely I think we can all do definitely a better job of that, for sure.
Well, let's spend the last few minutes being intentional. Let's talk about fan food. Tell me where you guys are going. What kind of the COVID Plan B attack you guys have, and how can people find out more about you guys?
Yeah, well, you can find out more by visiting fanfoodapp.com. We're on every social media, from Twitter, Fanfood on Demand, to LinkedIn. You can Google Fanfood, you'll find it. Pretty easy to follow the journey. Today we're in over 300 venues across the country. And we're really exciting time, because venues and stuff are looking for solutions that help support social distancing initiatives. One of the trends pre-pandemic was, how do venues go cashless, because there's certain benefits of taking a venue completely cashless, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that we've been preaching on, and so now it's just redefining the fan experience means making fans feel comfortable, feel safe in that environment as venues do open up. And, we're excited, because we've been building a platform for the last 6 years that does just that. And so, we're executing some partnerships that I think will be pretty transformational for the business. And we're definitely smarter. One of the hardest things in the pandemic was we had to lay off 50% of our staff.
I bet.
That was very hard to do as a first time business owner. As we think about growing the business, we're going to be a lot more intentional about bringing the right people on at the right time and adding value, and it's going to be a lot more thoughtful as opposed to, hey, we got to do it right now. So we're going to be a lot smarter, and I think we learned some great lessons, like the importance of not just prioritizing top line revenue growth, but to really build a profitable and sustainable business, because people's livelihoods matter. The team matters, and if I learned anything, you can't get to where you want to go without a team, period. It doesn't matter, right? You can't scale hustle, no matter how hard you hustle. I think this pandemic accelerated my growing up, as you put it. So, but yeah, I'm really excited about the future of fan food. I think that from our perspective, it's, how do we, today it's, you can order F&B from your seat. Tomorrow it's being able to book your parking, order your tickets, purchase consent, own, that entire kind of digital journey, and being a one-stop shop solution, value add partner for venues. That's kind of how we, want to be, or how, we're thinking about doing that. So
how many owners are there at Fan Food?
So there's myself and there's two other co-founders. We probably have 30 or so investors, 30 or 40 investors. 40 would be a lot. Yeah, 30 to 40.
Are you guys still in the fundraising stages of your business? Are you guys?
So we're in the process of closing out a round of funding right now that should give us, a pretty good, significant amount of capital. Well, I'm sure we'll announce it, later this year. But yeah.
How's the fundraising experience been? In regards to, you mentioned angel investors, maybe private equity. Has there been, when you were in Chicago, am I guessing there's probably plenty of opportunities, and just because you're here back in Cedar Rapids doesn't mean you don't have the connections back in Chicago, but is it fairly easy for a startup to,
It's incredibly difficult. It's one thing to go sell your platform to, a venue or a customer, right? It's one that's an interesting sales process, but it's another when you try to go sell your entire business and pitch why us as the founding group, which it's, candidly, I went to a public, University of Iowa, so a non, kind of accredited institution. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Yale.
Right.
I'm a first-time entrepreneur, trying to start a technology company with no technology skills. I mean, it's the odds are kind of stacked up against you. And I've probably pitched. Yeah, you're right. In Chicago, there's a lot of money, a lot of wealthy individuals, a lot of venture capital groups, private equity. But I can tell you, I've probably been rejected easily over 100 times for various reasons. So the marketplace is too crowded. There's too many people doing, someone's going to copy you with more money, with smarter team, better capitalized, and do what you're doing. But, there's always a reason. And I think something that, and I think that's, I've, especially during the pandemic, just kind of doubled down on my convictions in the company and everything it stands for, because it's, just delivering that much more value, and it's hard, right? And I think that's, some of the skills that I've developed. Getting rejected 100 times is developing that persistence to keep going and get it to that next level. And it's not like it's no right now, but that doesn't mean that I'm closing the doors, right? So it's like, every no I've gotten, I was very intentional about getting feedback, like why, and then at what point, do I have to hit to come back to you and prove it, and there's, whether that's revenue milestones or getting your product to where it needs to be or having X amount of customers, there's always something that, I was like, hey, this is where we need to go. And, that's what we've been, that's what we do. But so it's very challenging. It's not a fun process by any means.
Right.
But it's a necessary evil.
So one thing I was curious to talk to you about, and I know we're a little over an hour. That's fine. Is in regards to technology, you said you had a great idea with no technology background. So did you just go out and find people that literally design apps?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you did?
There's a professor who's at the University of Iowa who had a team, a development team in Vietnam. And so, we were able to put some wireframes. I mean, I had the idea of putting the wireframes, and I knew kind of what I wanted the look and feel to look like. So we had someone translate that into what I had one of my buddies who was in marketing, also went to Prairie. I was also friends with Seth. I said, hey, can you help me kind of bring this idea to life? He brought it, helped bring it to life. We partnered up with the professor who kind of gave us the overseas development in order to kind of keep costs low. And then my dad, as you know, Grant, he's kind of built and exited. So he was a website developer back in the 90s, had his own, website business.
Yeah.
And then he had a Town Wild, which is like the Groupon for Cedar Rapids. So he had some software businesses that he had started on the side, and he helped develop the architecture and the foundation for and help kind of product manage these Vietnam team in the early days to get the product up off the ground. So
you had to pretty much build the product first, and then before you even pitched it, you had to build the product first, or did you pitch the idea and then build the product later?
I had a presentation of what I wanted the product to look like, and for me that was enough to start selling it. Wasn't built yet, but I was kind of running in parallel with the two at the same time. Yeah. No,
I'm always interested, maybe sometime you and I can talk about it, but I'm always interested in because when we built our business back in 1989, there was no cell phones. The cell phones were the size of a travel bag. There was no internet. We had typewriters with whiteout. We had dot matrix printers, which you had to rip apart and tear off the sides. And so, we just walked around, knocked on doors, and sold, retirement ideas. It was very, very difficult. Probably 100-hour weeks for a decade, I'd have to say. I mean, I waited till I was 35 to get even married because I was working so hard to build up the investment company. But today you can do things so quickly. What took me 10 years to build organically by nail, you guys now can, I say you guys, I mean your generation, you guys can do what we did in 6 months now, if not quicker.
Yeah.
So the velocity of growth in business now is great, but the problem is your competitors can go just as quick too.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're not really trying to reinvent the wheel or a better mousetrap constantly, and you have a good idea, but you just don't go on it quick enough, or you get the right, venture capitalist person to give you some money, your idea is gone that quickly. Mm-hmm. So, even though you guys have a lot more than we did, you also have more people know about more things too. Exactly. It's hard to keep a secret,
Yeah, I think so, but it's the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. So a lot of people have ideas. If I had $1 for every time someone said, "Oh, I had that same idea you had about delivering concessions to the seat," I wouldn't have to worry about cash ever. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point. It's a great point, but there's still the testament to like having the grittiness to go out and actually execute it and bring it to life. And I think that's something that a lot of people there's that like and this is something I think that's with founders too. There's a delta there in effort, right? Like and when you're a founder, you're passionate about what you're doing, you are willing to go above and beyond, and sometimes that is the difference of getting the deal or not, or right or that extra, or saving someone else's life with this podcast, like that extra effort that you go in to make it that much better is what ultimately goes into your brand. and
Right.
I would like to hope that me being vulnerable, as tough as it is, comes, helps fan food in some regards, by showing that, yeah, we are an authentic brand. And I hope that
Right.
comes across. So yeah.
I think that's a good point because I think a lot of public people, business owners, politicians, they want people to think they are almost robotic, and we're not. We're human beings. I mean,
Hmm.
we're all pretty similar. When you undress us, we're all pretty similar. I mean, even
Totally.
undress us internally, just get into who we are. We all have the same similar hopes, dreams, and fears. But hey, listen, it's been great to catch up.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get this out there because I think the combination of our stories and the fact that we go back a long ways, and you
Hmm.
grew up with Seth, and I think that adds a lot of credibility for me. And I'm very just in awe of watching you grow what you're doing, and even more in awe of the fact that you talked about some of the challenges you had. Because, like I said, it's easy for people just to um, hide behind that, and I think that's when people start to struggle when you don't open up. So,
Yeah. And that was one of the
we're gonna,
challenges. Right. And I like
yeah,
to it gives me peace knowing that, like that Seth experience, he was, yeah, one of my best friends. And I like to imagine that that enables me or gives me the strength to be able to continue to share his story, share our story,
hmm
in hopes that it helps some other person that's going through a dark time. So
it's interesting because I remember when Seth started his struggles. It was at 15 or 16 when he did Adderall. That was the beginning of his end. Was Adderall for ADD, unfortunately. And when I was watching him just unravel, I got to thinking when I would see posts about your graduation and Mitchell Wagner and Matt McDougall and all these people, I got to thinking, I wonder what Seth's experience meant to you guys. If it actually just slapped you in the face a few times, woke you up. Some of you guys were on different paths at that time when Seth was going through it. Because Seth had 8 years of this problem. People, I say he died at 23, and they're like, well, at 22, he must have been, fine. Well, no. From 15 to 16 all the way to 23, we battled this as a family, and he battled it internally. So,
yeah.
the ending was what it was, but he just kind of morphed into this creature that we just didn't know at the end, other than the fact that he had rehabbed a little bit. The last 8 years, he just kind of slowly evolved into something else. And I always thought, Carson, in the back of my head, how much is this positively affecting you guys? And I know one of his close friends, and I won't mention his name, but a couple of them have had some issues with things like this. They kind of went down the same road Seth went, and thankfully they're still alive, which trumps everything.
Hmm.
Any problem you have isn't as bad as being dead. So
Totally.
I tell all those kids that are maybe not, looking at you saying, wow, Carson did well, I didn't. It's like, but you're still alive. Seth's not.
Hmm.
You're doing better than Seth.
Yeah.
No matter how bad you think your life is, you're better than anyone that's not here. So I guess there is some way to put a bow tie on this, and find something positive. But hey,
Yeah.
I enjoy this. This was great catching up. Say hi to your mom and dad. I'm sure they're going to see the podcast.
I'm
And
sorry.
you're doing a great job, man. You're doing a really good job.
Thank you. I'm trying. It'd be great to
Well,
get some lunch sometime.
I will. I will. I'll spearhead that. But keep living undeterred, brother.
Thanks, Jeff.